일항쟁이였던 1917년에 태어난 윤동주는 평생 한국어로만 시를 쓰며 민족의 아픔을 위로했던 시인이에요. 폭넓게 세상을 접하고 더 많은 것을 배우기 위해 일본 유학을 떠났던 윤동주는 1943년 7월 한국인 유학생들을 대상으로 민족 문화와 독립 정신을 고취시켰다는 혐의로 일본 경찰에 체포됐습니다. 1945년 2월 윤동주는 28세의 나이로 후쿠오카 형무소에서 숨을 거뒀는데요. 암울했던 식민지 시절, 민족에 대한 사랑과 독립에 대한 염원을 시로 쓴 윤동주 시인. 우리가 기억해야 할 아름다운 이름입니다. 한국 바로 알리기. 여러분도 함께 해주세요.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로
나에게 에이펙은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개발.
신라의 정신이 에이펙 2025로 이어집니다.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. South Korea's trade minister met with U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer in Washington to discuss the trade agenda ahead of President Yi's summit with his American counterpart Donald Trump. Billionaire businessman and philanthropist Bill Gates met with President Lee Jae-myung in Seoul and discussed solutions for humanity through nuclear energy and bioinnovation. An arrest warrant has been issued for Chun Sung-bae, a shaman linked to bribery allegations against former First Lady Kim Gon-hee. And former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo also faces a second round of questioning today over allegations that he helped former President Yoon's efforts to impose martial law in December. As Seoul and Washington gear up for a summit between their leaders, South Korea's trade minister held talks with a senior U.S. trade official. This comes as more top officials from Seoul are on their way to Washington to finalize key discussions. Our Park Chun-an starts us off.
Ahead of the summit between South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung and U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. on Monday, Trade Minister Yo Han-gu reportedly met with U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer on Thursday. The two sides are expected to have discussed the trade agenda for the presidential summit. The meeting comes less than a month after South Korea and the U.S. agreed on a trade and investment package deal on July 30th. It also follows last month's framework agreement, with both sides now focusing on specifics. Meanwhile, South Korea's Industry Minister Kim Jong-un is also set to arrive in Washington on Friday to meet U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Energy Secretary Chris Wright. The talks, expected to occur on the same day due to a tight schedule, will likely cover industrial cooperation, which includes shipbuilding, semiconductors, batteries, and nuclear energy. Foreign Minister Cho Hyun is set to arrive in Washington on Thursday evening. Cho, who was initially scheduled to travel to Tokyo for President Yi's summit with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, reportedly canceled his trip at the last minute and headed to the U.S. instead. Addressing concerns that there may be changes to the agenda or even the summit schedule, Foreign Ministry official told reporters on Thursday that Cho's trip to Washington is to make final arrangements given the significance of the summit. Park Junan, Arirang News.
So as we just heard, a busy week ahead for President Yi as he is set to visit Japan and the United States for the first time since taking office. Now, before heading to Washington, Yi is set to meet Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba in Tokyo on Saturday. For more on what to expect at the meeting between the leaders of South Korea and Japan, we're joined by Dr. Kim Mi-kyung, senior researcher at Gyeongsang National University. Dr. Kim, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
So President Yi will be traveling to Tokyo tomorrow to meet with the Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba, and this week's meeting comes as this year marks the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan's colonial rule and also the 60th anniversary of the normalization of bilateral ties between Seoul and Tokyo. So what might be on the agenda when the two leaders meet?
Oh, I can think of basically 4 following items. Firstly, on economic and trade cooperation. Both countries are facing trade uncertainties from the Trump administration's steep tariffs, and they are likely to focus primarily on technology and supply chains. The summit might explore more opportunities for the enhancement of bilateral cooperation in the areas of tourism, trade, and investment as well. Secondly, on security coordination, both countries are dealing with security threats from North Korea's growing ties with Russia, making regional security cooperation a priority. Thirdly, both leaders are likely to cooperate with each other to prepare for Lee-Trump summit meeting. Lee's meeting with Ishiba is clearly intended to prepare for the tough challenge of the summit with Trump, where Lee could seek negotiation tips from Ishiba, who has already navigated relationships with the Trump administration over tariff issues. And finally, trilateral cooperation. The visit aims at strengthening bilateral relations and reinforcing trilateral cooperation with Washington, while the meeting could help dispel U.S. concerns by showing how close Seoul and Tokyo are despite their historical disputes.
I see, and it's the first time in 2 years that a South Korean president is visiting Japan, and it's unusual for a new Korean leader to meet the Japanese prime minister first before meeting the U.S. president. You just mentioned that he could seek some tips from Ishiba. Could you tell us more about the significance of this trip and what it says about the Yi administration's policy towards Japan?
Oh, yes, of course. The timing is very significant as this represents unprecedented decision to visit Japan before the U.S., highlighting the strategic importance both leaders place on Korea-Japan coordination in the current geopolitical environment. I believe this visit represents a remarkable diplomatic shift that reveals several key aspects of Lee administration's policy towards Japan. First, it seems to suggest a transformation in bilateral history-related policy stance. And what do I mean by this? The significance of this trip cannot be overstated. Lee had spoken harshly of Japan in the past, for example, declaring in 2016 that, quote, Japan is an enemy country, end quote. Now, as president, he is taking unprecedented step of visiting Tokyo before Washington, marking a dramatic evolution in his stance. This posture vis-à-vis Japan is consistent with Lee Jae-myung's pragmatic doctrine, where diplomacy cannot be an exception. Lee's Japan policy basically follows a two-pronged strategy. It seeks cooperation on issues of economy and trade, as well as security, while maintaining a principled stance on historical and territorial disputes. This represents what experts call pragmatic, national interest-centered diplomacy that prioritizes strategic needs over historical grievances. President Lee's adoption of this two-track approach by separating historical issues from present and future areas of cooperation appears to ease lingering Japanese doubt, demonstrating his willingness to compartmentalize contentious issues for broader strategic gains. Lee's unprecedented decision to visit Japan before the United States allows the two Asian neighbors and allies of the U.S. to tightly coordinate their response to Trump administration. Leaders Lee and Ishiba emphasized overlapping concerns about the global turmoil as their primary security partner. In other words, the U.S. turns inward. The upcoming Japan visit seems to reflect Lee's broader foreign policy transformation.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how the summit plays out this week. All right, Dr. Kim, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The founder of Microsoft and now chairman of the Gates Foundation, Bill Gates, is here in Seoul to discuss solutions for humanity through nuclear energy and innovative tech in collaboration with South Korea. Our Oh Soo-young has this report.
Seeking windows to resolve growing challenges faced by humanity. Nuclear power and bioinnovation topped the discussion between President Lee Jae-myung and tech mogul turned philanthropist Bill Gates. On Thursday, the founder of Microsoft and now chairman of the Gates Foundation paid a visit to the presidential office in Seoul. President Lee commended Gates for his contributions to the world through the Windows operating system, as well as global health and development.
지구와 지구인 전체를 위한 그런 공공적 활동에 대해서 경의를 표하고 우리 대한민국 정부도 함께할 방법을 최대한 찾아보겠습니다.
Gates, meanwhile, noted South Korea's transition from a recipient to a donor of foreign aid, highlighting its role and innovation in advancing global development, such as in tackling child mortality through Korea's bioscience products.
The world has changed a lot, whether it's the geopolitics or the technology of AI. And so you have a huge opportunity to re-examine some of the key strategies and really reinforce the strong role that South Korea plays in solving many of these problems.
He added that while the evolution of artificial intelligence and science brings development and progress, such changes also raise concerns. He pointed to rising healthcare costs in low-income countries, stressing that multinational support is critical. Gates later said at a separate event there could also be partnerships between health agencies and North Korea as a low-income country in the fields of vaccines too, but noted Pyongyang has decided against such cooperation. Addressing the growing demand for power in advanced industries such as AI and semiconductors, Gates suggested small modular reactors could be an effective solution. President Lee expressed Korea's interest in constructing next-generation nuclear power plants. He said many local firms have been developing small reactors and their presence in the global market is steadily increasing. Korea's second-largest conglomerate, SK, has invested $250 million into TerraPower, an SMR firm founded by Gates. TerraPower is also partnering with the Korean government to develop a global supply chain for advanced nuclear technologies. Visiting Korea for the first time in 3 years, Gates on Thursday also met with local press and politicians at the National Assembly. He said the Gates Foundation is planning to open an office in Korea, citing his frequent interactions with the country's authorities and businesses. He added he always enjoys coming to Korea and hopes to visit every 2 or 3 years. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, the Seoul Central District Court on Thursday issued an arrest warrant for Chun Sung-bae, a shaman linked to bribery allegations against former First Lady Kim Gon-hee. The court cited a high risk that it could destroy evidence. The decision also comes just 2 days after a special counsel team led by Min Jung-gi filed for his arrest on charges of bribery and violation of political funding laws. Meanwhile, former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo has been summoned by a special counsel team led by Cho Eun-seok for a second round of questioning on Friday. That's part of the investigation into former President Yoon Suk-yeol's failed attempt to declare martial law. The counsel team says it will determine whether to seek an arrest warrant for Han following the session. On the economic front, the U.S. Federal Reserve's Jackson Hole Symposium has now kicked off, with much attention on Chairman Jerome Powell's keynote speech. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young has more.
Central bankers from around the world have convened in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, for the Federal Reserve's annual conference. All eyes are on Fed Chair Jerome Powell, slated to deliver a speech this morning local time. His address comes amidst political pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump, who continues to push for interest rate cuts. Market expectations are divided on what Chairman Powell will signal. This is due to the conflicting signals emanating from the crucial economic indicators, employment and inflation data. Employment indicators have begun to show signs of stress. U.S. employment growth in July proved weaker than anticipated. U.S. non-farm payrolls increased by 73,000 jobs in July, following a downwardly revised 14,000 increase in June, the fewest gains in nearly 5 years. Weakening employment data suggests a potential economic downturn, increasing the impetus for rate cuts.
We do expect the Federal Reserve to favor that side of the mandate. So, focusing more on the employment side versus the inflation side. And if we do see incremental weakening in labor market conditions in the upcoming weeks, I think Chair Powell wants to give himself a route to start to resume those interest rate cuts if that's indeed what happens with the data looking forward.
Conversely, the inflation picture remains unstable. The U.S. Producer Price Index for July surged by 0.9%, exceeding the forecasted 0.2% increase and the largest monthly increase since June 2022. This inflationary pressure hinders prospects for rate cuts. Meanwhile, minutes from the Fed's July session indicate that most policymakers largely agreed on maintaining the interest rate at 4.25% to 4.5%, primarily citing heightened inflation risks stemming from President Trump's tariff policies. Notably, however, 2 members of the Fed committee dissented from this status quo, voting instead for a 25 basis point rate cut at the last policy meeting on July 29th and 30th. This marks the first time since 1993 that more than one Fed governor has voted against a rate decision. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
KPop Demon Hunters director Maggie Kang is back in Korea, the home of the genre that inspired her global hit animation. Our Park Gun-woo sat down with the star director to talk about her journey and what may come next.
Homecoming Golden. After shaking the world with KPop Demon Hunters, director Maggie Kang has returned to Korea, the home of K-pop.
Well, every time I come to Seoul, I feel like I'm home. So when the plane touches down, I just think to myself, oh, I'm home now.
Having spent lots of summers in Seoul as a young girl, Kang says her back-and-forth life between Korea and abroad became a deep source of inspiration.
All the summers I spent in Seoul, I was here. I was experiencing it firsthand. I was feeling everything. I was smelling the smells. And that memory just kind of stays with you. And, it almost becomes real. It's like you're reliving your memories. And that paired with all the kind of pop culture and references that I learned from Western culture.
Back then, her love for K-pop was often dismissed by her friends abroad. But now she feels a massive shift to how K-culture is embraced in the West, making her proud to be a Korean.
Well, when I was a little bit more insecure, I hid it from people. But the older I got, I knew that I've always just had this strong Korean pride, so it always had stayed with me. And then to see Korean culture just be more, just loved and people wanting more of it, I've just seen that gradually happen where now it's kind of unavoidable. You go to a fast food restaurant and there's a gochujang flavor of chicken wings, and it's just natural. It's just kind of completely accepted into mainstream, and that's just amazing to me.
Seeing the rise of K-pop's popularity, Kang says she wanted the film to reflect that connection with fans, not tied to just one idol group.
We opened up kind of a reference board to our entire crew, and by the time that we got into designing these characters and figuring them out, literally everybody was on there. We took elements of this idol or this group, and so it is really a mix. When they see Huntrix, they think, I'm a fan of this group, and so for me, Huntrix is this group. I just wanted to make a film for every K-pop fan to enjoy in their own way.
The movie took around 7 years to make, leaving a question. How did she manage to stay relevant and trendy?
It's really about the story and really staying true to what the audience is going to connect with, and that's really the emotional story of the characters and the message of the film. And I think from the very beginning, that was really set. That was our kind of North Star. It was all a culmination of everybody's favorite things.
She even shared her favorite scene that much effort was put into.
Well, all of the scenes are like my children, and I can't really say that any of them were easy. One of the scenes that I'm most proud of is the very opening scene where we see the old-time original hunters, and we see Korean culture from the Joseon era to modern day. It's such a short moment, but for me, being someone who's Korean, it was just such an emotional feeling to see our tradition just on screen.
With global fans still excited about the movie, Kang gave us a sneak peek of a potential sequel.
After spending so many years making this film, there's a lot of ideas that didn't make it in. So there's different types of demons that we didn't get to feature. So I would love to feature new demons, that are different visually and different types of music. And I think there's a lot of backstories that we can flesh out and give the fans a little bit, more information on.
Can you give us a message for all the roomies outside watching that are struggling for finding their dreams and trying to pursue their career that they want?
Yeah, don't be scared. Stay true to yourself, and if you feel scared, you're probably doing something right, because it means that it hasn't been done. And it means that it's coming from somewhere deep inside of you. And I think once you create any work of art or put anything out there that's a part of yourself, that's what people want to see. That's what people connect to the most.
At the end of the day, Kang stressed the film carries one true message: don't be scared of who you are. Echoing the lyrics of K-pop Demon Hunters' theme song, Golden. I'm done hiding. Now I'm shining. Like I'm born to be. 박건우, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Starting in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that Israel will begin ceasefire negotiations aimed at releasing all hostages and ending the Gaza war on conditions acceptable to Israel. Addressing Israeli commanders and troops in Gaza on Thursday, Prime Minister Netanyahu confirmed the authorization for an expansion of military operations aimed at seizing Gaza City. He also announced the initiation of new immediate ceasefire negotiations with Hamas. Netanyahu said these negotiations aim to achieve an end to the war and the release of all our hostages, but he insisted that the terms must be acceptable to Israel. While Hamas has proposed a 60-day ceasefire along with a prisoner exchange, Israel's conditions remain the complete disarmament of Hamas and the end of its military control over Gaza. Netanyahu highlighted a dual-track strategy of both military pressure and diplomatic dialogue, evidenced by the mobilization of 60,000 reservists and the planned ground offensive to seize Gaza City. The Israeli military has warned medical officials and international organizations to prepare for evacuation of nearly 1 million residents of Gaza City ahead of the new ground operations. In Italy, a Ukrainian man has been arrested in connection with the 2022 Nord Stream pipeline explosions. Italian police arrested Serhiy K., a 49-year-old Ukrainian, at a holiday bungalow near Rimini in central Italy in the early hours of Thursday. The arrest was executed under a warrant issued by German prosecutors. They accused Serhiy K. of being one of the masterminds of the sabotage in 2022 of the Nord Stream pipelines that carry energy under the Baltic Sea from Russia to Germany. The operation to destroy the pipelines was carried out from a yacht with a team that included divers and support operatives. This is the first arrest in a case that Swedish and Danish authorities had closed in 2024 without resolution. German Justice Minister Stephanie Hübig commended the operation and reaffirmed Germany's commitment to the rule of law, distancing this case from its unwavering support for Ukraine. Egypt has successfully retrieved a collection of 2,000-year-old artifacts from the seabed of Abu Qir Bay off the coast of Alexandria. The find includes a headless statue, a sphinx, Roman coins, and a carved priestly figure, which archaeological evidence suggests could be remains from an extension of the ancient city of Canopus. The site also revealed limestone building remains, including residential structures and places of worship. Egypt's Antiquities Minister Sharif Fatih emphasized that the lifting operation followed a 2001 UNESCO agreement, raising only select artifacts to preserve the broader underwater heritage.
My weather report seems to be a repeat of the last few days. More heat and scattered showers. It seems the heat has no plans to let up. More regions are now under heat wave warnings, with overnight temperatures staying above 25 degrees Celsius in most parts. Skies will be clear nationwide with on and off cloud cover. And from the afternoon into the evening, passing showers will move across the southern parts of Korea with 5 to 60 millimeters in the forecast, along with thunderstorms. And this afternoon, Seoul, Gwangju, and Busan will be getting up to 33 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Gyeongju will be hotter this afternoon. UV rays will be strong to very strong throughout the day with that high humidity. Tomorrow is Cheoseo in Korea's traditional seasonal calendar, which usually signals relief from the summer heat. But strong heat will stay longer despite the frequent chances of rain. So please take well care of yourself in this intense heat.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
우선 저희 누나가 발레를 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 누나 발레 학원에 따라가서 누나가 하는 모습을 보니까 저도 하고 싶다고 생각이 조금 들어서 발레 음악에 맞춰서 아무 춤이나 추다 보니까 그냥 그 음악에 맞춰서 제가 몸을 움직이는 게 재밌다고 느껴졌었는지 발레를 계속 하고 있더라고요. 나이가 좀 어릴 때 제가 가진 장점이 무엇인지도 모르고 아예 제가 가진 단점도 모를 때 발레를 시작했다 보니까 제일 큰 문제가 이제 평발이었던 것 같아요. 평발이다 보니까 발레를 할 때 쥐가 조금 많이 나는 편이라 그거를 견뎌가면서 춤을 계속 춰야 했던 거 그게 가장 극복하기 힘들었던 것 같고요. 제가 다리가 다른 친구들보다 조금 두껍다고 해서 제 다리를 조금 싫어했었는데 근데 이제 로잔에 갔다 오고 나서 오히려 제 다리에서 나오는 파워풀한 힘이 좋았다고 해주시는 분들도 있다는 걸 느껴가지고 그 두 개가 가장 극복하기도 힘들었고 기억에 남는 것 같아요. 프릭스티 로잔이라는 콩쿨 자체가 학생들 사이에서는 가장 크고 의미 있는 콩쿨이다 보니 제가 그 로잔 영상을 보면서 자라왔기 때문에 그 무대에 서서 제가 춤을 췄다는 것 자체가 엄청 인상 깊었던 것 같아요. 제가 걸어왔던 길, 이게 맞는 방법일까? 근데 그런 의구심을 다 없앨 수 있게 제가 가는 길이 맞았다라는 거를 확인시켜줬던 것 같아요. 그래서 그런 감정이 들어서 조금 감격스러웠던 것 같아요. 한 배역에만 잘 할 수 있는 명수가 아니라 어떠한 배역을 받아도 다 넣어서 소화해낼 수 있는 그런 스펙트럼이 넓은 명수가 되고 싶습니다.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you is Friday, August 22nd here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Im Sang-yeon.
Thanks God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday. And also Kang Won-ju is with us.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's finally Friday, and to close out the work week, we're going to talk about something a little lighter, but still quite thought-provoking: how much emphasis people place on appearance when it comes to dating. From social media trends to the rise of parties and events centered around looks, there's a growing debate about whether younger generations, especially millennials and Gen Zs, are putting too much importance on physical attraction. So let's start simple. So it's Friday, and it's a perfect time to go on a date. So when you're looking for a partner, do you find yourself focusing on appearance, or do you prioritize other qualities first, Sang-yeon?
I do prioritize appearance.
Okay, thank you for your honesty.
Yes, I think appearance is an important factor when choosing a partner. And of course, excessive lookism should be avoided in the society. But humans tend to be attracted to the first thing they see from a person, which is likely to be a physical characteristics. And don't get me wrong, I don't only prioritize appearance, of course, but I can't deny that looks are important. If my girlfriend is pretty, then yeah, I would be happy even when we are fighting just by looking at her face.
That's a very honest take on this.
Okay.
So since you look at appearance, and everyone's style is a bit different, which I guess physical attribute do you look at the most?
Well, I tend to look at the balance of the person, and also I prefer taller girl over shorter ones.
I mean, you're tall too, so that's fair.
Yeah, so I'm almost 6 feet. So yeah, I don't really have a strict standard about height, but for me, if the girl is taller, then that would be better.
So you appreciate taller women?
Right.
Okay, that's fair. What about you, Won-ju?
For me, appearance is not a deciding factor. Of course, I know each person sees this differently, and I think that's perfectly natural. But after all, our looks are mostly something we're born with. It does not reflect our choices or our character. And it is true that how neatly a person maintains themselves can reflect the effort they put into their self-development. But I think the emphasis should end right there. I'm more drawn to someone who understands and embraces the differences, because a relationship is about two people from different worlds finding a way to walk side by side. So in my case, I think characteristics are more important than the appearance of my partner.
I like what you say about finding someone to walk side by side. That's very sweet, Won-ju.
Thank you.
But of course, just like we saw with just the two of you guys here, it depends on the person. But probably there's a large number of the younger generation nowadays that's placing a greater emphasis on looks when choosing who to date. And there are now even parties that seem to reflect this growing focus on physical appearance. So, Sang-yeon, have you heard of these kinds of events?
Yeah, I did hear that there are those kind of fun events going on. Yeah, without even me knowing about them. So, and I think such group matchmaking events have been popular for a long time, and there are also many of them these days, and some of the themes go beyond appearance. It could be based on personal salary, family background, or within the same religion or region. And recently, among the MZ generation, there has been a growing tendency to prioritize appearance when looking for dating partners like me. And this could lead to the rise of so-called appearance approval parties, and at these events, men and women in their 20s and 30s submit photos and body information to the organizers, who then review the applications based on attractiveness, height, and overall impressions, selecting participants purely based on appearance. So the participation fee is about 50,000 Korean won, that is around $35 per session, but popular parties are fully booked for the entire month.
I feel like this is the party just for you, since you do look at appearance.
Right.
But I'm surprised that it's actually quite popular. I read an article about how in the Dongjaku district here in Korea, here in Seoul, more like 3,000 people apply every month, which is a crazy number.
Yeah, I also heard that there is a special, these kind of parties in a certain apartment complex where the young men and women gather around together within the same apartment complex.
Wow,
Yeah.
so these are actually becoming really popular. So, Moonji, have you also heard of these parties and events like this? What do you know about them?
Yeah, I've also heard about this appearance approval parties, which I highly doubt if I'm qualified for it. But anyways, given how important looks can be in these settings, there are also parties where names, ages, and occupations remain completely undisclosed. So according to those who have attended these kind of parties, such events offer a higher chance of meeting someone you find very attractive while also being safer compared to blind date or nightlife venues such as hunting pocha in Korea. So on a blind date, it can be hard to meet someone that is truly one of your ideal type and whose appearance truly appeals to you. Whereas if these kind of parties, people with verified looks are only invited. So I think participants tend to trust this kind of parties better than blind dates.
What I thought was kind of funny was that you mentioned how like names, ages aren't revealed, but then so then they have these nicknames after celebrities, right? Like Joan or Jenny.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So appearance is typically considered surface level, which is why it's deemed less important than other traits such as personality, especially when it comes to choosing a life partner. So it's interesting to see how millennials and Gen Zs are increasingly seeking out partners they find physically attractive. And to get a broader understanding on this, we asked our viewers on the Arirang News YouTube channel a more simple question. Do you think it's natural to be attracted to someone's looks? And here's what the results showed. So a majority, 92% of respondents agreed that it is indeed normal to be attracted to how someone looks, while 8% said not necessarily. So while looks might not be the top priority for everyone, it seems that many still agree it's natural and understandable to appreciate someone's appearance. So let's delve deeper into why younger people are placing a greater emphasis on looks when choosing a partner. So Sang-yeon, what would you say is driving this shift?
Well, I think it was mostly driven by the changing social perceptions about marriage, because nowadays many youth are kind of viewing marriage as not a must, and this also has changed the standards by which people view their potential partners. In fact, the percentage of respondents who said that marriage is a necessity has dropped by about 15% compared to a decade ago. Whereas in the past, factors such as occupation, assets, and family background, those conditions that were tied to marriage were emphasized, and today the value placed on physical appearance, which satisfies this instinctive attraction, has grown significantly. And at the same time, I think the increase of more women maintaining their economic activity also contributed to this shift. Because in the past, it was a social norm for men to prioritize a woman's appearance, while women consider a man's occupation and economic strength when choosing a partner. But with many women still holding on to their jobs even after marriage and giving birth, women can now maintain their economic status within their family. And as a result, it became quite meaningless for women to only prioritize a man's salary and his ability as a breadwinner. Instead, both men and women are now putting more weight on their partner's physical attractiveness.
That's really interesting. Moonji, do you know anything else about this?
I think also with the rise of visually driven social media and the popularity of dating shows like Netflix's Singles Inferno, where the contestants' physical appearance is amplified. Some analysts argue that external beauty has become a new form of social class, even surpassing the wealth and the fame and the perceived value. The truth is, in today's world, having good looks indeed can open doors to opportunities in various aspects and various fields, something the growth of social media has strongly affected. This may be one reason why the importance placed on appearance continues to grow within the MZ generation. In fact, research has even found a proportional relationship between salary and physical attractiveness, strengthening the belief among many young people that appearance has become one of the key forms of competitiveness in this modern society.
Right, so I've also watched these dating shows, like you mentioned, like Singles Inferno. It's very obvious that everyone's so attractive on those shows, so I can see why looks are now become more.
And they're becoming like the icon of DMZ generation as soon as they appear in the film. Yeah,
right, so you think like, oh, I guess looks are really important. That's like kind of like such a norm now.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about how this shift in dating culture is showing up in the rise of parties and events focused on looks and why this is happening here in Korea. But we wanted to get a broader global perspective on this topic. So coming up, we'll be speaking with a young person from another country to hear their take on how appearances influences dating where they're from. And that conversation is happening right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Anna, a millennial who's from Germany, where usage of the dating app Tinder is apparently high. So hi, Anna. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hi, everybody.
So what is dating culture like in your country? For example, how do people usually meet? Is it through apps, parties, or other social events?
I think, especially because I know also how dating life in Korea is, I think it's much more casual than formal. So usually you can meet on events, on parties, or even on the street. I had a friend visiting Korea, and after 3 days, she said, how do people meet partners in Korea? They don't even like look each other on the street. So in Germany, usually when you find somebody attractive, you would smile at the person or like show your interest. And in Korea, I realized that when somebody is like looking at you or staring, people kind of feel a pressure and think, who is this? Why is that person like staring at me? So I think this is really different in Germany. And also the whole dating procedure, I think Korea is much more formal compared to Germany, where usually everybody lives alone. So you can just have friends over. And because of that, you get a better connection right from the start. Maybe you see the person without makeup because you have a sleepover or stay over. And I think in Korea, because when you're dating, you always meet at a formal place. You have a date, so usually girls get ready. So I think after a time, the pressure on how to look is much bigger than compared to Germany.
Okay, then when choosing a partner, Anna, how much do people consider appearance compared to Korea in Germany? And what do you think the reason behind that is?
I think in Germany it's still, of course, important because you have to feel that attraction toward the other person. But I think it's less important. And in my opinion, the reason is the social pressure that is often on Korean society, not only on how the person looks, like your individual attraction, but also how the representation is to other people. So I feel that when my Korean friends tell me, oh, I have a boyfriend, or I'm dating this person and he is from this school, he's doing this job, he's this tall, it's much more mentioned what the status of the person is, how they look like, compared to like other actors or anything. And in Germany, I think that is less important. More important is the life goals, common interests. So I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I see. So our last question for you today is, do you think young people in Germany today pay more attention to looks compared to previous generations? If so, what do you think has changed?
I do think so, that younger generations have a bigger pressure also to look perfect, mainly because of social media. I mean, even myself, I see myself starting like to compare myself to other people and see how perfect couples upload dating pictures, and you think, oh, that's also something I want to achieve. So I think people see that and have the pressure to look like that, to appear like that. And I very often heard of with dating apps, for example, people think, okay, everybody has to look like this, and then they were dating the person, and the person in real life looked really different. But I think it's something normal. So people already have that in mind when meeting a person, which is kind of sad because I think we should still feel comfortable in showing who we are. But yeah, I guess that's another generation where looks have more importance.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today.
Thank you.
So we just spoke with someone from Germany who shared her perspective on how appearance plays a role in dating culture in her country. It's interesting to see both the similarities and differences compared to what we observe here in Korea. And looking ahead, if this trend continues and the focus on looks becomes even stronger, do you think it could create problems in the way people form relationships? What kind of issues do you foresee arising from the shift, Sang-yeon?
So if this trend continues among MZ generation, it could definitely lead to a deepening of appearance-only trend in society and culture. Excessive emphasis on looks may cause people to become overly obsessed with outward appearances, ultimately leading to negative consequences for individual happiness and life. It can also have harmful effects on adolescents, such as fostering feelings of inferiority. And it will also create a social atmosphere where every other value is neglected except for appearance. And this will then pressure the youth, especially young children who are growing up, to pursue looks, ending up in materialistic society. In the end, the essence of true love, ingenuity, sincerity will all be lost. So even though I'm a person who prioritizes looks not only in dating but also in social networking, I strongly believe that other factors should also be measured when judging others. So your look is like a document screening. So if you're pretty, there is a greater chance that you might have more selections, and there's a greater chance that you might be chosen in the dating market, but it doesn't always guarantee finding the right best partner.
So what do you mean by you prioritize looks when it comes to like social networking?
Well, I'm not saying that someone should look handsome or pretty, but like taking care of yourself, managing your skins and hairs, yeah, those kind of things would actually give you an advantage when you're having like a job interview or when you're meeting someone for an important business meeting. Yeah, it could actually give you a plus factor.
I agree. It's important to look put together. It's always good. Moonju, so what are your thoughts on placing such a strong emphasis on looks when choosing a partner, which I know you don't do, but...
While attractive looks can strongly influence, the choice of partner, especially early on stage of the starting a relationship. But there is also a study suggesting that they're not a decisive factor in sustaining a long-term relationship. So focusing only on appearance may make it harder to find someone you can truly rely on, and share life with over time, because there are lots of things that should be come before in order to build a long-term relationship, and you might be missing those kind of deeper qualities.
So to close our discussion for today, Sang-yeon, when we look at this dating culture among millennials and Gen Zs, where emphasis is placed on looks, where do you think this is headed, and how do you think it can evolve in a more healthier direction?
Actually, I often hear this a lot from foreigners when they come to Korea. Many of them say they were surprised by how well-dressed the people are here. So as more people value appearance, it is indeed giving a silent social pressure, which makes you feel that if you don't dress up and stay fit, you will be left behind the social majority. And again, excessive obsession toward appearance should be avoided. But like I've mentioned earlier, I think taking care of yourself could have a buff effect when you are socially networking with others, polishing your nails, trimming your hair neat, wearing clean and fresh clothes are the efforts that we can make to give a good impression to others. And this is especially helpful when we are seeing someone after a long time or when you're having a job interview. Because at the end of the day, having a neat and tidy appearance won't hurt. It will only make yourself more appealing to others.
I agree. Munji, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do completely agree with Sang Hyuk-seo. Just giving it briefly. I think MZ generation should also keep in mind that if you are too obsessed with the appearances, you might be losing the deeper qualities of your life or the self-development part, which I have mentioned earlier. And also, more importantly, beauty standards vary from person to person, and each form of beauty deserves to be respected. So I think it's very important to keep this in mind.
So while it's natural to be drawn to someone's appearance, it's clear that the emphasis on looks is becoming more pronounced among younger generations. So whether this trend will continue or shift toward a more balanced view of what matters in a partner is something we'll be watching closely as well. But even as attraction matters, it is important to remember the bigger picture. Qualities like we mentioned, like personality, values, and shared goals often play a far greater role in building lasting and meaningful relationships. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back Monday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Big thanks to Sang-yeol.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Also, Moonju.
My pleasure.
And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and we hope you have the best weekend. We are News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business casual. Avoid wearing all white, shorts or going topless. Step 1. Arrival time. Arrive 30 minutes prior to the wedding ceremony. Too many cars, too many halls, too many people. There are many twists and turns. Take pictures and shake hands. And write your name vertically, not horizontally, in the guest book. Step 2. Or, shibor. 50,000 won, 100,000 won, 150,000 won. Cash gifts are given in these units. Decide on the amount based on your relationship. Write your name vertically on the envelope. Step 3. Wedding etiquette. Fill up the front row. Guests have 3 duties to fulfill: clapping, cheering, and taking pictures. Step 4. Dining. Take off your jacket. This will be your seat from now on. Start with the not your everyday delicacies. Galbijjim. Yes. Bosa. Yes. Chili shrimps. Definitely yes. Kimbap. Yeah. Only if you can't live without it. No need to pile up food. You have more than one opportunity. Did you survive the wedding? Wait. Did someone catch your eye? What are you waiting for? You're looking fine today.